Welcome to the AWA TEFL Alumni Series, an interview series that features graduates of the Master of Arts in Teaching English as a Foreign Language at the American University of Armenia. My name is Irshat Madyarov. I'm the chair for the Master of Arts in Teaching English as a Foreign Language, and I was also the advisor for a thesis project that we're going to discuss today with the actual researcher. And her name is Anna Poghosyan. She's a graduate of 2024. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Dr. Madyarov. Thank you for having me.
Anna, briefly tell us where you are now professionally.
So after graduating from the MATEFL program, I started working with the AUA extension, and currently I'm a general English instructor at the extension.
Now, diving into your thesis project, you investigated the generative AI and how graduate students at this university use specific software in their academic writing. Could you briefly explain some more details of what exactly you researched and why it was important?
Yes, so I explored how graduate students are using different types of feedback. So the traditional feedback coming from their writing instructors, and also feedback that they receive from automated writing evaluation system and generative AI. I looked at ChatGPT and Grammarly in particular. And I got interested in this topic, in this question, during my studies at the MATEFL program. We had a course called New Technologies in Language Education, so I got really interested in this topic. And later, when I started my research, I discovered that this is a very timely topic to investigate, and that although there has been some research already, the research primarily looks at the effect these systems have on student writing, but none of them looked at how students are engaging with the systems, what kind of behavioral and cognitive processes are going on. So I was really interested in this, given that there is a concern among instructors, also including instructors in our university, about students using these systems, whether or not it inhibits their creative process in their writing and their autonomy in writing. So this is why I decided to investigate this topic.
How did you do your research project? Could you elaborate a little bit on the methodology?
So it was a mixed method research, meaning that I had qualitative and quantitative components, but it was heavily qualitative. So I started with surveying my participants, who were two cohorts of the same program. And what I found out through the survey is that, as expected, all of them were familiar with at least one type of automated writing feedback systems. And although they had different perceptions about it, so some students had more preference towards using the systems in their writing than the others. And when I analyzed it, it seemed like the main variable determining their perception was their age, meaning that younger students had more positive perceptions towards ChatGPT and Grammarly.
Mm-hmm. So after your survey, you've then that really you collected from a larger pool of graduate students here at the university, you were able to look at the specific variables and cherry-picked with the intention to really diversify your participants across age, across experience with technology and their perceptions. And so you selected a fewer sample size, a smaller sample size, to do the qualitative piece of your thesis. Could you talk to us more about that part of your thesis?
At this stage, I used a research instrument called a Think Aloud protocol, which is mostly used in cognitive research. And as I mentioned, we were interested in these cognitive processes going on when students are interacting with these systems and different types of feedback. So we decided to use a Think Aloud protocol. What this means is that students came to a room, they came with their laptops, and they were asked to engage in their regular writing revision process while responding to the comments received by the instructors, and also using ChatGPT and Grammarly as they normally would. And during this whole process, students were asked to verbalize their thoughts, so to think aloud their thoughts. And this was video recorded for the further analysis. And this is where some very interesting findings emerged.
So now it's the most intriguing part, the drum roll. What are the findings of this part of your study?
Some of the findings were really surprising to me. So we would expect that students are already using ChatGPT quite a lot and that they would use it for most of their revisions. But what I did, I counted the number of times that they use ChatGPT in separation and teachers' feedback and Grammarly to make some revisions in their writings. And the numbers really surprised me because the number of times when they used ChatGPT alone was just less than 3% of the time. So the teachers' feedback, that they used only teachers' feedback to refine their writing, it was 38% of the time. And Grammarly was 41%. But sometimes students combine different types of feedback. It means that sometimes they received a comment from the instructor, and to further refine their writing, they also used ChatGPT. So they mixed these kind of two types of feedback together, and this was used more frequently than ChatGPT in isolation. What this tells us is that students used ChatGPT mostly as a supplementary tool rather than the primary source of their feedback. It means that still students had preference for instructor feedback.
Could you give an example of the part where the instructor gives feedback, comments on the student's paper, and then you're saying that the student couldn't quite understand maybe, and then went ahead and started using ChatGPT and this combination? Can you think of an example from your data?
Sometimes the instructor's comments were a little bit generic, so students did not quite understand what was expected of them. So they used ChatGPT as a second opinion. They asked ChatGPT to clarify the instructor's comment, or they understood the instructor's comment, they understood their task, but they needed a further assistance from the GPT to achieve the suggestions that were given by the professors. And in other cases, they used ChatGPT to learn, which was another interesting finding. So sometimes they received a comment from the instructor, they didn't quite understand what the instructor meant, and they used ChatGPT to learn about the concept that the instructor discussed. Or sometimes they received a suggestion from the Grammarly, and again, they used ChatGPT for meta-linguistic explanation, meaning they wanted to learn whether or not they should do this suggestion. So this was a very interesting insight. It means that students were actually using this as learning tools.
Speaking of Grammarly, you mentioned that the students used the three sources of feedback: instructor, Grammarly, and ChatGPT, sometimes in isolation and sometimes in combination. With Grammarly, what kind of feedback would they receive most frequently as opposed to maybe what they would receive from the instructor? Again, the categories of feedback.
Yeah, so this is important to highlight that the type of feedback was different. So Grammarly primarily, of course, commented on the language, so word choice, accuracy, and grammar, basically. But instructors focused on more higher order skills like the organization, the logical progression of ideas, sometimes the APA format as well. So yes, the type of feedback was quite different.
All right. So what would you recommend based on your findings for the students wanting to improve their academic writing?
So for the students, I would recommend to be careful, not to plagiarize, because yes, this really puts them at risk of plagiarizing if students are not aware of the systems very well and if they are not using them correctly. So I wouldn't recommend them not to use them at all, because I think this is impossible in our reality. But I would recommend them to be educated about the opportunities and risks that these systems bear, and Also, to avoid plagiarism, students could use this in the revision stage of their writing, not the drafting stage. Because in the drafting stage, the generative AI would do their work for them, and we don't want to do that. So in the revision stage, students could combine this with different types of feedback that they get to have a supplementary assistance to their writing. Yeah.
And you mentioned at the beginning that a lot of the faculty members here at the university, I'm sure in many other institutions, educational institutions, are concerned about the impact of generative AI, specifically ChatGPT at this point. And what would you suggest to instructors, teachers?
Mm-hmm. So I think that instructors should be involved in this education. Some instructors are trying to avoid this topic and they're too much concerned. But I think, and research shows, that when instructors are more involved in educating students about the generative AI and automated writing evaluation systems, students are starting to use these systems in a correct way. So I would recommend that instructors provide this opportunity for students to learn. And also what I would recommend, although most of the instructors are already doing this and it proves to be effective, so I would recommend instructors to focus on more higher order skill feedback. Because sometimes when students are already using Grammarly, they do not really need some very minor comments about their language use, word choice. So I think Grammarly is doing this job quite well. So maybe instructors could use it for their own benefit as well.
Well, thank you for your advice. I'm one of those instructors.
Yes.
And I want to thank you for all the wonderful work you have done with this thesis project and the teaching that you're doing for the American University of Armenia Extension. And I wish you success.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you for joining our interview series, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in our upcoming episodes.